Well, we made it. VCT Champions 2024 is just around the corner. It's been a great VCT season, which is reaching its finale probably earlier than people want it to be. But whatever the case, we're here now, and it's time to talk about who will win Champions 2024. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we will be looking through each and every team attending Champions, and we will be discussing what are the chances for each of these teams to take home that trophy. So this is the board we have today. We have all 16 teams, and for each team we have their MVP, or at least who I perceive to be their MVP, each team's best map, at least by win percentage and amount of wins, as well as what their placement was at the last international that they attended. So without further ado, let's start with the Americas. So we will be starting with the top seeds of each region, and in the VCT Americas, that is Leviatan, who took home their very first VCT Americas trophy, and that is mostly because of their star player, Ospos. Ospos has been on an incredible run this year, looking like the best player in the entire world, while his team's performance at Shanghai, which did end up being a 9th to 10th placement, wasn't exactly what the team was looking for. Ospos definitely wasn't the reason why they bowed out early of that tournament, and he is the main reason why they took home the top spot in the Americas. Their best map this year has been Icebox. They've been very dominant on it with a 12-3 record. They have an attack win percentage of 63% and a defense win percentage of 55%. I think one concern that I might have about Leviatan is their overall map pool. While they do have an incredibly strong record on Icebox, possibly being the best team in the world on that map, their overall record with maps is pretty good, but not something that I see as over the top good as other teams. They do have a solid record on Lotus and Sunset as well, but nothing that shows me that they have this incredibly deep map pool. They have a deep map pool, it's a good map pool, but it's one thing that I could see being kind of a weakness for them. However, with how Ospos, Mazzino, Kane, and Tex have all been playing, this team is looking in top form. If they can continue their strong momentum from the end of Americas, despite losing one match against G2 early in the bracket, if they can keep going in that way, they are going to have a pretty good shot, but I don't know if I see them winning one just yet. As we're going to be talking about, the talent pool at this tournament is incredibly deep, and just because you're able to dominate in your region, as Leviatan have done all year, doesn't necessarily translate to the international results, and that definitely did happen to them in Shanghai. I do expect a deeper run at least, but I don't know if I see them winning this one just yet, but if they do, I'm not going to be too surprised. Moving on to a team that is going to be looking to be building upon their very solid performance at the last international, G2, who did place 3rd at Shanghai. Their MVP so far, I picked Valen. I could have put Jonah P as well, because probably from an individual standpoint, he's been their best player, but Valen is a close second in that department, and he is an incredibly good IGL. I think he is one of the best IGLs in the Americas right now. He showed how he could be effective on the international stage at Shanghai. Now that Valen and this team has the international experience, they're really going to be looking to make a deep run yet again, but make this one end in a grand finals appearance and a victory. However, one thing they've definitely been struggling with this year is their performance in best of fives. Throughout all best of fives that they've played so far, they are about 1-3. They've shown some really good comeback ability by losing the first map or going down like 8 to 10 rounds and being able to grind out the game and win the whole thing, but they haven't always shown the ability to be in one of these very long, very tasking best of fives and be able to come out of the other side with the win. They were able to do it in VCT America's Stage 1 playoffs, but then they lost to 100 Thieves after beating Leviatan, and then Leviatan got the best of them in the Stage 2 playoffs. So that's my main concern with them, but I'm definitely not too concerned about their map pool. On Lotus, they do have a 10-6 record, looking like one of the better teams on that map. Attack win percentage is 52 and defense is 56, and that is a very important part of that puzzle. It's one thing that I've been saying about G2 in videos about them. Their Lotus side, while they are very good on attack, their defense side is very solid, which can't be said about every team that has Lotus as one of their better maps. While their defense win percentage is a little bit lower than it was before because of losing to Leviatan, they are still really good on that map, and their overall map pool is pretty solid, having some strong records on other maps. So I do think G2 are capable of going on another deep run in this tournament. I do think that they're capable of winning this tournament, but overall, with their performance in best of fives, I think that's my main concern and why I don't know if I buy it. But this team has shown resilience. They've shown improvement all year. If they win this one, I'm not surprised either. I don't think that they're too much of a dark horse. I think they're probably going to be one of the favorites. Moving on to a team that has shown up at every single Champions in Valorant esports history, and that is the LATAM team, KRU Esports. Their MVP this year I do think is Kesnet. He has shown that he is one of the better duelists in the Americas. One thing that's definitely a concern about KRU is their map pool. They don't have the deepest map pool. They have shown some pretty good performances on certain maps such as Lotus. 5-3 record with an attack win percentage of 69%. Nice. That's a really solid number for attack side, but defense being 42%, really leaving a lot to be desired there. Definitely want to bump that number up to at least over 50%, because if you lose over half your defense rounds, that's definitely not going to help you. Definitely struggling on maps like Icebox and Ascent. This team really needs to find a deep map pool, and maybe on Abyss, what they had shown some pretty good promise on so far, maybe they can jump on that map early and make their map pool a little bit deeper, but we will see. Their last international tournament was Champions 2023, where they placed 13th to 16th, and that was after a solid LCQ run in the Americas last year, where they were one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the Americas during the regular season that year, and then LCQ happens and they make a run to champs, and then they lose their only 2 games of champions, kind of ending that story on a sour note. But KRU have been good in champions of past, specifically the 2021 champs. They went on a pretty deep run. So while success has eluded this team at the international level for a very long time, they have shown it in the past, but we'll see if they can get it done, but I think they're definitely one of the underdogs here. Really not expecting KRU to go very far. I think some are underrating them, and I know some people think Kesnet isn't as good as certain people said he is, but I still think he's a really good talent in the Americas, and players like Heat and Shy have shown that this team does have some pretty good depth, but I don't know if they have enough top-tier talent to be able to make a deep run with how many good teams we're seeing at this tournament. So moving on to the last Americas team, we have Sentinels, who qualify for this tournament because of the amount of championship points they have. Every 4th seed of each region made it here because of championship points, and with Sentinels losing to 100 Thieves early in the bracket, it kind of hurt 100 Thieves and helped Sentinels, because Sentinels just got in off of champ points after Lev 1, and then 100 Thieves lost their next 2 games and bowed out of playoffs. And say if Sentinels were the ones to make it to the top 3, 100 Thieves, they probably would have had that championship point spot. However, that's not what happened, so let's not talk about a team that's not here. Sentinels MVP, I do think, is Zekin at Madrid. He was probably the best player in the world at that time, but then stage 1 happened, and Zekin was definitely struggling a bit. But then in stage 2, he was a pretty solid performer, despite Sentinels kind of ending their last 2 matches not exactly looking like contenders. But Zekin is a very talented player, and if Sentinels are going to go far in that group of death that they're in, Zekin is going to have to perform like he did in Madrid. On Lotus, they do have a 10-3 record. Attack win percentage is 68%, which is really good, but a concerning defense win percentage of 45%. And now that split is out of the map rotation, that definitely is going to hurt Sentinel's map pool just a little bit, but they have had time to prepare to look at the other maps and look at how they can revamp their map pool. And with the brain trust of Kaplan and the calling of John QT, I think they're going to be able to have a pretty good map pool heading in. Definitely not looking as strong as their map pool was at Madrid, but that's a tournament they won. They have since struggled to maintain dominance on a wide variety of maps, but it's not the worst map pool in the world. Sentinels definitely have the players capable of going on a deep run at an international. They've already done it this year. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's a Mickey Mouse tournament, yada yada. Shut up, it doesn't matter, they won. But the truth of the matter is that while they did win that Madrid tournament, that is a long time ago at this point, and they haven't looked like the same level. They make it in here off of championship points, so partially because of that Madrid win. So we'll see how it goes for them. They are in the group of death with some incredibly talented teams, so definitely concerned for their chances in that group. But if they somehow make it out of that group, expect this team to go on a deep run. I think they're going to be very motivated to make this one a really good tournament for them. So that is the Americas all wrapped up. Now we are moving on to the EMEA region, which is a region that hasn't won a tournament this year, and every single year of the VCT, they've been able to take home at least one. So does that streak get broken and none of these teams are capable of doing it? Or is this the tournament where EMEA finally gets it done in 2024? Well, let's look at the options, starting with Fnatic, who definitely have had a very up and down year. They miss out on Madrid and then had a pretty mediocre stage 1, but it did end with them winning the whole playoff bracket. So they make it into Shanghai and only were able to play the 7th to 8th, not winning a single game. But Fnatic are a team that have a long history in Valorant, a history of disappointments and a history of winning. Winning 2 tournaments last year, they're looking to flip the script on them right now because They want to beat those washed allegations. For their MVP, I put Chronicle. I know there's going to be a lot of talk about Hero and maybe Alpha Year as well. But with Hero, I don't exactly know how that's going to go for them. I know he has performed incredibly well for them, and they haven't lost since he was put on the roster. But I kind of see that more as the team system has really been helping Hero out, and the other players on the team have provided an incredible safety net, which has allowed Hero to thrive playing Leo's role. Leo was definitely this team's best player when he went out with his illness, but this team has rallied around the fact that they now have this new player. They look like a team that hasn't looked as good as they were in the past. They want to prove people wrong. They don't have their full roster, so they have this new guy come in, and they're just like, we're just going to make it work, and we're going to look like one of the best teams in EMEA. And Chronicle has been a very important part of that turnaround for Fnatic. And his numbers haven't always been really good, so the fact that they're very solid in Stage 2, I think he deserves to be there right now. On Lotus, they have an 11-5 record, looking much better than what they did early in the year on this map. Last year, they were probably the best team on this map. No one wanted to take Fnatic to Lotus, but in 2024, it looked very up and down for them. However, they've looked back to that 2023 form on that map and now have a very solid record on it. Attack win percentage is 55 and defense is 55 as well, so very solid numbers on both sides. So does Fnatic have what it takes at Champions 2024 to take home their trophy? They haven't won a Champions before. They've won a Master and they won Lock-In at the start of the franchise league. I do think this roster ends up going on a deep run. They've looked very solid recently, and I don't think they're going to stop early, but I don't know if I see them as the one that is finally going to get EMEA over the hump in 2024. They're definitely one of the top teams. They're definitely one of the contenders, and I'm not going to be surprised if they win. But overall, I just don't know if this ends up being Fnatic's year. But is it Team Vitality's year, who are appearing in their first international tournament as a Valorant squad? For the MVP, I put Safe, who in Stage 2 really revitalized his play. This team came into the 2024 VCT EMEA season looking like maybe they're probably one of the best teams in the league on paper, having some really solid talent from front to back, but they weren't able to make it to an international until this one. A very good performance in Stage 2 and Stage 2 playoffs to make it to the grand finals against Fnatic. They did come up short in that grand final, but they still looked very good. On Sunset, they have a record of 9-5, so that's one of their better maps. Attack win percentage is 53% and defense is 55. With this team having their first international appearance, they definitely are going to be a scary team and a team that maybe other teams aren't going to take as seriously, but players like Safe know what it's like to be at an international and really want to prove people wrong this year. I think they're one of the underdogs. I don't know if I see them as true contenders for this tournament. I think they're going to have to rely on being one of those surprise dark horse teams if they're going to go on a deep run. Moving on to Team Heretics, which is a team that placed second in the last international. They came up short in grand finals against Gen.G in VCT Masters Shanghai, placing second, and that was definitely a bit of a heartbreaker for this team, who went on an incredible run with Patatek being a part of the roster, being a stand-in. He wasn't supposed to be on that roster, but Miniboo decided to step back for that tournament, and then they went on an incredible run. But despite Patatek's very good performance, they didn't keep him on the roster. Miniboo got back in, which no one was really surprised by. So this team's MVP is probably Woot, who is looking like definitely one of the better players in the entire EMEA. They're one of the more dangerous teams on Sunset to play against. They have a 15-4 record. Attack win percentage is 57 and defense is 64. Don't take this team to Sunset if you can help it. This team is really solid. Their Stage 2 has kind of left a lot to be desired. They haven't looked like the world beaters they once looked like. Maybe they're missing Patatek a little bit. Not that Miniboo is a bad player or anything, and I think him being in the roster, he definitely deserves to be there, especially with Neon being a very strong meta character right now. But it just feels like this team is maybe missing a little bit of that sauce that they had in Shanghai. Do they get second place cursed? It's possible, but the second place curse kind of died in Champs 2023, and the last two tournaments we haven't really seen that happen. Gen.G placing second at Madrid and then winning the next one. So we'll see what happens to Heretics, but I definitely think that despite their iffy Stage 2, this team should be a contender. These should be one of the favorites to win. Despite Fnatic's experience, I do think Heretics are EMEA's best chance to win Champions 2024. We'll see if they end up getting it done. They are in the group of death, which includes Gen.G and Sentinels. Only two teams can make it out of that group, so either way, we're going to see one really good team not go deep in this tournament. So Heretics are going to be looking to make that not the case for them. And if they make it out of that group, I think no one should take this team lightly. I think they're going to go on a deep run if that's how they start their tournament. Moving on to FUT Esports, which is a team that is very familiar at the international stage. Aside from Madrid, they have made it to every international since 2023, but despite the fact that they've been able to make it there and look like one of the better teams in EMEA, maybe upsetting teams that look like they're better than them, they haven't exactly had a ton of success internationally. While they did get an upset win against Leviatan in Shanghai, they ended up losing to 100 Thieves. They did kick Fnatic out of that tournament, but they lost shortly after. So this team is showing some upward progression at the international stage, but are they really going to be able to go deep? If they play a Sentinel a lot at this tournament, they might have a pretty good chance because they have a 4-0 record on it, so they are undefeated on it right now. Attack win percentage is 63 and defense is 60, and at Shanghai they got 5th to 6th, so definitely better than previous tournaments for them, but overall not something that looks incredibly dominant. I think they have a good roster, but I don't know if what they have as an overall perspective is really going to push this team to go very deep. I just think there's too many good teams, and in their group they have EDG, G2, and PaperX, so I don't know if they make it out of that group. We'll see what happens to them. Maybe they make it out of that group and maybe they go on a dark horse run, but I wouldn't hold your breath for it. Moving on to the Pacific region, which finally has its first international trophy, with Gen.G being the winners of VCT Masters Shanghai, so we no longer have to worry about if this region will ever win a trophy. Now that they have, now the pressure is a bit off of every other team, but there are some teams that still have a lot to prove. Starting with the Shanghai winners of Gen.G. Their MVP this year is Texture. Every player on that team has been very effective, but overall Texture is the main reason why this team has gone on the run that they have this year. On Ascent, they have a 14-3 record with attack win percentage of 57% and defense being 59. I think by and large, Gen.G have the best map pool in the entire world right now. They don't have a losing record on any map. The worst they have is 5-5 on Sunset, so still a 50% win rate. They don't have a losing record. This team is dangerous wherever you take them. And at the international level, they've only lost one match in 2024, and that was to Sentinels in the grand finals of Madrid. Aside from that, undefeated. Some teams have come close. They've lost maps here and there for sure, but they haven't lost. They've been on an incredible run, and I think they're probably the best team at this tournament. They are starting their bracket in their group against Sentinels, so really going to be looking for revenge there. I think they have a very good chance to do it. I don't think it's going to come easy though. And in stage 2, they didn't seem to skip a beat. They ended up winning the playoff bracket yet again, and they just look like an absolute wagon right now. We don't know what happens to this roster after this year ends. There are rumblings that Gen.G as an organization isn't making that much money right now, so will they be able to keep this potentially world championship winning roster? We'll see what happens there, but if that is the case, maybe they go on some kind of last dance kind of run, but we'll see what happens. I think teams are really going to be gunning to beat them. I think they're going to be one of the teams that people are more prepared to face. I don't expect this international win streak to last throughout the entire tournament. I think they at least lose one game, but hey, the record shows that they're not going to, so we'll see what ends up happening for Gen.G, but these guys are probably the favorites. Moving on to DRX. Now, I can't really talk about DRX without mentioning the accusations. One of their players has been accused of some pretty heinous things. I'm not going to get too deep into them here, but it is a very unfortunate situation, and it might have roster implications if they decide to take that player out. I don't know if the roster lock has happened yet or when it's going to happen, so we'll see what happens in the coming days. But from what we've heard about the situation and the fact that DRX has addressed it and knows about it, it's a really terrible thing. It's an awful situation, and I hate that we have to talk about it because it shouldn't have happened at all. So that just really sucks, and I hope the victim does get justice if these accusations are in fact true, which really seems like they are at this point. So we'll see what happens with that situation, but I'll talk about this team's chances even though it feels kind of weird. For the MVP, I chose Buzz. He has been performing quite well in stage 2. On Haven, they have a 4-1 record, looking like one of the better teams with that team back in the map rotation. They have attack win percentage of 67%, a defense win percentage of 53, and their last international was Champions 2023, where they placed 5th to 6th. This is a team that in the past had a roster that looked like they could have taken a trophy home, but just never did. And then with a bit of a roster revamp in 2024, looking like potentially there's something here, but they didn't make it to an international until this one. But we don't know what's going to happen to the roster heading into this tournament, and I don't think that the players should play. But overall, with that situation, I think it's probably going to be very distracting for these players. They're probably going to be getting a lot of hate online during this tournament, and for the players that didn't do that heinous act, that's not deserved. But it just seems like something that is primed to just take everything out of a team, which kind of sucks because this team definitely was looking pretty promising. I don't expect DRX to win this one. If they do, especially if that player is allowed to play, that's going to really suck, and that's really going to cause an uproar, so I'm not predicting it. Beyond that situation, I don't think they're capable of doing it either. DRX is a team that typically chokes in the big moments. So with all that bad stuff aside, moving on, we have PaperX, who are a team that has come so close to winning a tournament and just hasn't been able to do it. Multiple grand finals, top 5 appearances, top seed in their region. Doesn't matter, they've always lost. I ended up picking them for Shanghai, I ended up picking them for Madrid, I picked them to win Champions 2023. I didn't even realize that I had picked them 3 times in a row to win when I picked them for the last one. But I said during that tournament, if they lose, I'm never picking them to win a tournament again. And I'm not. I don't think this team's going to win. I think they have the talent to do it. They have some very good players, but for some reason, this team just can't do it. If they prove me wrong, I will be happy. I want this team to win. This team looks really good, and these players deserve a trophy, but it just feels like it's just not going to happen with this team. For the MVP, I chose Divine, who's looking like one of the best players in the entire Pacific. On Sunset, they have a 15-2 record, looking incredible on that map. 59% on attack, 62 on defense. And in their last international, they placed 5th to 6th, losing much earlier than people, including me, were expecting. As I said, this team's really good. They're capable. I just don't think it's going to happen with this team. It just doesn't seem like a thing that's going to happen. They will always look like one of the better teams in the world, one of the better teams, if not the best team in the region, and then it just always somehow ends up coming up short. We'll see if that narrative has changed, but not expecting it to. Moving on to our 4th seed in Pacific, we have Talon. Talon's an interesting one. For the MVP, I put Jitboys because he does have the best stats out of their team, aside from Primi. I know people are going to say Primi, but Primi's only played 3 games so far. I'm not going to put him as the MVP because we really don't know everything about Primi at this point. He's an incredible ranked player, didn't look out of place in the matches that he played so far, really frying on that first one he played, but overall, we just don't know enough about him for me to put him as the MVP. Jitboys has been performing very well. On Lotus, I have a 7-3 record, attack win percentage is 50%, and defense is 53%, and they have never qualified for an international tournament. Yes, lock-in exists, doesn't count because every team got in. So we'll see how this international debut goes for this team with this new player that nobody knows nothing about. It's going to be a secret weapon for them that either works in their favor or allows teams to play off of that inexperience. And this team's map pool isn't great. It definitely is leaving a lot to be desired. Overall, I don't see this team as going very far despite the addition of Primi, but hey, if he can come in and fry immediately, then this team could really be a dark horse. So that is the Pacific region. We are moving on to the final region of China. Now granted, I don't know a lot about this region. I don't know a lot about these teams. I don't watch the China games, and it is very hard to keep up with what's happening. However, can't talk about this tournament without talking about them. Starting with Edward Gaming, who are a team that at this point do have a long history at the international level. For their MVP, Kane is the obvious one, probably the best player in all of China. He has incredible mechanics. He's a really good player. No surprise that he's the MVP. On Sunset, they have an 8-4 record. Attack win percentage is 61%. Defense is 46%. Shanghai was a very disappointing tournament for them. They didn't even win a single map. They were the top seed of China heading into that tournament, so they do end up placing 7th to 8th, but it probably should be last if, we start with all the teams at the same spot. EDG is a team that will look really good in their own region. They did have a bit of a rocky stage 2, but they still ended up making it to the grand finals of the playoff bracket and winning it. But at the international stage, they've been able to upset teams that people see as better than them, but not make a huge impact and go very deep. They used to have a curse of placing either 5th to 6th, so they broke that by placing even worse. So we'll see what happens, but China overall as a region, if they're their best chance, I don't think I see China winning. However, FPX is a team that has been looking pretty good in the China region and didn't perform poorly at Shanghai, and that is FPX. Their MVP, I do think, is Life, looking like one of the better players in China as well. On Icebox, they have a 6-5 record, so not the deepest map pool if this is your best one. 67% on attack, defense is an abysmal 39. Really need to get that number up. At Shanghai, they did place 9th to 10th, so they finally won a game. At every other international, they either couldn't win a map and couldn't win a game, but they ended up winning one at Shanghai. But going from 0 wins to 1 win. Not exactly the biggest accomplishment, but hey, it's something. And if they end up looking like the better team than EDG, maybe this team has some life in them. Moving on, we have KRU Esports, who did place 3rd in the China region. For the MVP, I put down Kai. I just put whoever had the best ACS on the team because, again, I don't know a lot about these players, and the VLR page for China, they always have the rating blocked because of the game plan thing, but Kai had some pretty good stats, so here he goes. On Ascent, they are undefeated, so that's a good upside for them, 5-0, an attack win percentage of 61, defense is 70, and this is their first international tournament, so they'll be looking to prove that they can do some damage, but it's been proven to be a very difficult task for Chinese teams to make much of an impact at the international level, especially if it's your first time. So I do expect that inexperience to show up, and I just don't see it for this team, and I just don't think they have the overall talent. Again, I don't know a lot about this team, but when you just look at on paper and just how their region is versus others, I just don't see it for KRU. But hey, they can prove me wrong, just like any other team on this board. Moving on, we have a team making their grand return to the international stage, and that is Billi Gaming. Famously known for their upset wins against Gen.G in Champions 2023, which did take them to a 7th to 8th placement. So a decent little run at Champions last year. That is mainly what they're known for at the international level. For their MVP, I put YZ, who did have the best stats out of the team. Not the greatest map pool though, from looking at it. On Ascent, they have a 3-2 record. Attack is 40%, defense is 62. Really don't see it for this team. They did get upset wins last year, and hey, maybe they do that again, but I think that's probably all they can really hope for, because I just don't see it for this team with how they are in their own region, making it off of championship points. They don't have a deep map pool. They don't seem to have super high-end talent. I just don't see it for this team either. So that is every single team that is attending VCT Champions 2024. I'm not going to choose a winner just yet. I'm going to do a pick'ems video for the group stage, and then when the playoffs start, I'll do that as well. But those are my thoughts on every team's chances at winning this tournament. Let me know in the comment section down below who you think is going to win. Which teams do you think are the true contenders? Please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.